Hey, good evening. Welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, we're just looking on the news and see that Panglao has now opened its international airport. So they've been working on that for some time, and now the news is that it's open and it's handling international flights, apparently to Hong Kong and I think Korea, places like that. I'm not quite sure whether they're going to be handling the US and the UK and Australia. I would imagine that they are, but then they have a way of sharing this work out, don't they? And there is the airport at Tagbilaran, which is still open. Panglao is more the White Beach area, and it services the tourists that come, especially for diving. When we went to Panglao a little while ago, we actually walked past. I mean, diving is not something that I've often thought that I would love to do it. I did it on a very, very light, like a visitor's, almost like a freebie. You know, you're taken in and you just go out in the bay. This was in Malta that I did this, and I'm a good swimmer, so I was able to pick it up fairly quickly, and we only went out into the bay, which was probably about 20 or 30 feet deep. Now, they have serious diving facilities out in Panglao. Believe me, we walked past, I think it was there that we walked past places where they were diving specialty places, and boy, they had every single kind of thing that you would expect, so that you could walk in there with only your wetsuit, and probably not even that, and you could rent for that day. You would be able to rent all kinds of equipment, and those little underwater speed units that they have, which will take you through the water very quickly, cameras, the whole thing. You know, I was amazed at how, even for here, I guess we get so used to knocking the Philippines as being well, if not exactly backward, certainly not forward in having the latest facilities. But certainly when it came to diving, I think these were Phil-American partnerships that had gone ahead and were ready to do all kinds of advanced stuff. And so this will make a great deal of difference. I don't know how much difference it will make to us. We're out closer to Itafi. We're about six kilometers from Itafi, which is still a sleepy little town. The bank in Itafi, just to give you an idea, the bank in Itafi only caters for locals. Can you imagine that? A bank just for locals. In other words, you can't go in there and complain about their ATM, because it doesn't accept your international ATM card, because they'll say, "Sorry, sir, we don't serve anybody but the locals." So that gives you an idea, and everything is pretty sleepy. They seem to be ramping up to being ready to take more traffic. This for us is not a great thing. I like being in a sleepy little place myself. We live high in the mountains of Burgos, which is between, not lopsided, but between about 6 kilometers from Atafi on the national highway, and you go through Burgos. And after Burgos, it's about 16 or 18 kilometers to Taliban. And boy, have we seen some changes in Taliban recently. They are virtually ready to open the Jollibee, which has my wife salivating at the thought that she will be able to go in and have Jollibee. Of course, I am thrilled. Well, actually, I shouldn't really say that, because you can go to Jollibee now and you can get a steak. You can get a steak like this big, or actually that phrase doesn't really work, does it, when it's like this? You say this small, but that's not a doable phrase either. But they're going to have that, and it has changed the centre of Taliban beyond belief. There's a huge, beautiful actually, modern building in there, and it occupies a terrific amount of square footage or square meterage of the town. It already is making others sort of ramp up their act, and it will bring about terrific changes, I know. And as I say, I'm not really so thrilled at that all happening, but it does mean that as cities grow, they spread out, and what was on the perimeter on the outskirts of a city becomes the city. This has made, I've seen this happen in London, and as London spread out, it took in small places and made them part of London. What makes something part of the city when there's nothing in between? For London, there would be houses that would be on the edges of both London and on the little township that it was about to swallow up, and the houses will be built up in between, and so it becomes part of the big city. And that's what will happen. My prediction is that Tagbilaran will continue to grow. Hopefully they'll try to get the traffic sorted out, but I don't think that will happen either. They haven't managed to do that in Manila, although I have to say that Tagbilaran is not quite the same as that. But once you have Tagbilaran growing, then I think that it's quite possible that Taliban might be the next one, either that or Tubigon. Tubigon is a port town and is quite lively. They have a huge new supermarket, which is Al Taurus again. Taliban is Al Taurus, and Al Taurus obviously has some power. It might have the power of veto, because you would think, wouldn't you, that there would be a McDonald's. No, didn't happen. And I don't see any building going on for McDonald's either. Tubigon has a McDonald's. Now, I don't think that it has a Jollibee, but these things will come to pass, I'm sure. So, if you're thinking about coming and living in Taliban, there are many things to consider, and rising prices obviously will happen. It will happen that land will become more expensive. In Taliban, I've seen places that you would never dream of putting a building up a little while ago, and now a really nice, professional, architect-designed buildings, not just one, they're going up and businesses are opening. And in order to cope with all of this, a lot of these new businesses and buildings are to do with hardware. Now here, what you and I might call a hardware store is one where you go and they sell all kinds of things like buckets and some tools and some rice and some grain, and that might be a hardware store. But here, it's what perhaps a Westerner, certainly a Brit and an American, would call a construction, a building. In the UK they call them builders merchants, and that's where you go and you will stand in line behind professional contractors who have gone there. And then what happened then was Home Depot came in and did the whole thing. Now these buildings actually bring a great deal of change in many ways. for one thing, when you went into, say, and it's the same here, they've adopted the same kind of customer service, but when you went into, in my recollection in say Fort Myers, when you went into Home Depot, you could go into Home Depot and you could talk to someone that worked there and say, where would I find such as drywall screws? And he wouldn't just point it out. Normally, he would actually say, come this way, sir. And he would take you to where the drywall screws are. And he would say, so what size were you looking for? And in the end, you would end up that your shopping would be done for you, and most politely and with a smile. And that's what I found in, say, Fort Myers. And I remember how this change had not really come to some of the outlying stores who probably would eventually become out of business. And I remember that I had a job to do, didn't want to deal with long lines, and in effect I went. In fact, I remember now that the particular job that I was on, the customer wanted me to get my materials, paint that is, and he wanted me to get them from this particular store. And this was a small, what was a prosperous, successful mom and pop store. All right, so you went in there and it was like several parts of the family were there working. Now I remember going in, and as I'd been requested, I went in and I had the colour paint that I wanted, and I handed him the colour paint, and he went over and he went to the mixing desk where they type in, they find the colour, and then they simply put that into the computer, and the computer tells them a dib of this and a dib of that and a dib of the other, and there you have your paint in the right colour. I remember I went in there a couple of times, and the third time that I went in there, so by now I'm perhaps what you might call a regular customer, I went in and I said, I need this colour paint, and he recognised me because I've been in several times, and he said, do you have the formula? And I said, I'm sorry, I don't have the formula with me. And he actually admonished me. He said, you know, we're not just here to mix up paint for you. And I don't know whether I actually told him, but I certainly thought to myself, well, you know, the next time that I need paint, I will go to Home Depot, where the man that mixes the paint will call me sir and ask me, how can I help you? And I'll tell him the colour, and he will say, do you want to shop around for a little while and come back in 5 minutes? And I'll have it for you. I'm not sure whether I actually said that, but certainly, looking back on it, I jolly well should have done, shouldn't I? See, so it does seem like big changes are coming here, because I noticed that if I go into the Alturas hardware department, if I go and I ask for something, go and say drywall screws, he'll say, come this way, sir. And he takes me round to where the drywall screws are, and he says, what size? And I tell him the size, and he finds it for me. And then in fact, I'll probably have a shopping list with me. And I don't read the shopping list because it's in my wife's handwriting, and I can't read that. So I hand it to him, and he says, hacksaw blades. Fine. How many? 4. So, 4 hacksaw blades. Now, what else is looking at the thing? Come this way. And I follow him round with a shopping basket. He gets everything that I want. and just like Home Depot in America. He doesn't tell me, you know, we've got more to do than follow you around with a shopping basket. Things are changing, and the big companies, because they train their people, you will eventually go there. And the other one, I remember going to, say, Home Depot when I had the job, coincidentally, where the man wanted me to go to this store. And I went, and I was making a patio for him, and I was doing it in redwood. And I could buy beautiful 6x2 finished redwood. And I would go there, and I would take one of the big shopping carts that would carry a lot of materials, not a trolley or yeah. And I would go around there, and I'd pull off a piece, and I'd have a look down it. I'd look down it like I'm looking down the barrel of a gun, and if it wasn't quite straight, I would put it down, and I would find one that was. And I got all of my redwood there, and it was all beautiful. And here's the other thing. Back then, if I had bought 20 pieces and I only needed 15, I could take the 5 back, and they wouldn't say, is it defective? In fact, they might say, was it okay? I would say, yeah, it was just more than I wanted. Now, chances are that if it had been for work at my own house and I was 5 pieces over, I would have kept it. So it makes sense for, say, Home Depot to have a no-hassle return policy. I might have kept that extra 5 pieces for a week or two, but as long as I have the receipt, I could take it back and I would get my money back in full. And if I had gone there and just made a mistake, which sometimes you do, you go in there and you think that you're buying the right size of something, 1.5 inches, and it turns out that it should have been just an inch. And you go back there and you take it back and you line up, and the woman says, what was the problem? It was the wrong size. Can I just go and get the right size? And she will say, I'll just give you your money back. And then you can go and get what you want. So getting the money back was not a huge issue. So, changes are coming, and in spite of whatever you might think, new Western ways are being adopted. Probably not as fast as people would like who are coming from the West, but they are coming. Some of them are good and some of them are not so good. For me, I like the uncrowded life, and it's still here in Bohol. You can still go down, albeit that there is soon to be a Jollibee. You can still go down and park anywhere and not get a ticket, which I always thought was a joy. So, thank you for looking in. Welcome to a changing Bohol. It's all waiting for you. You can get the plane to Tagbilaran. You can get the plane from almost any major city now, soon enough, to Panglao, and get straight off and dig your toes into a beautiful white beach. How bad is that? Thanks for looking in. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Bye.